Merry meet, guys. Welcome back to Witches of the Moon. I am your Wednesday host, Houston. I am recording on Christmas, so Merry Christmas to those who celebrate. This week, week 7, we are talking about binding magic. And I do believe that Natalie and Jennifer did an awesome video. Both videos were awesome, even though they were short. They were very informative. I'm going to go into a little bit more because I like doing binding magic. I do one of my spells a lot, and I'm going to share it with you later on in the video. So for me, there are two ways to look at binding magic, as Natalie and Jennifer stated, but I'm just going to rehash. You can bind someone so they don't affect you, or bind someone or a situation. Binding magic is not just on a person, it can be on a whole situation. So let's say you're having... I'm trying to create something. This is where the spell that I love to do, it comes into play awesomely. Let's say you're having trouble at work with a lot of people talking behind your back, being kind of two-faced, and kind of getting you in trouble. Them being nice to your face and then turning around and kind of stabbing you in it. What you can do is write that situation out on a piece of paper, and I'll go ahead and share the spell since I'm basically leading up to it. And you can do my favorite spells, the freezer binding spell. I originally found it out of one of Silver Ravenwolf's books. I know people are going to eye roll at that, but she's one of my favorite authors. It's from her teen spell book. It's called the Chill Out spell. What you do is you write the situation or person and if it's a person, why you want to bind them or what particular quality you want to bind in them. And you put it in paper, bag, and water. That's the general basis of the spell. You fold up the paper away from you, have everything written out, hold paper away from you, stick it in the bag, fill up the bag to only as much as where the paper is covered in water, and then stick it in the back of your freezer. And she emphasizes to slam the freezer door and scream "chill out." I don't do that, but that's an awesome spell. It's one of my favorites, and I'll go into how I use it and how what things I add to it later. But you can bind a situation or a person to keep them at bay from harming yourself, to keep you clear and protected. It can be used as a form of protection. You can also, there are some people who use binding magic to bind someone to you or bind something to you. It's seen a lot in love spells. If you do, I don't really work with love spells, but if you're, and this is unethical in my opinion, but if you're after a particular person, you could bind that person to you to grow the love or create love that may not have been there. Or if you are in a relationship, you can, and you need to respice things up, you can do something like that. But those are all different types of spells. We're talking about binding. So I was just going to show an example of one thing you can do if you don't have access to a poppet. I mean, you can totally make one out of paper, but I'm not a fan of creating, so I just wrote John Smith on a piece of paper, and then over his name, I'm going to write shut up. We'll write shut up 3 times over his name, and I'll show you once I'm done. So what I did, as you can see, John Smith, and then I did shut up, going through what's up. That's a hoodoo, a conjure trick, and from there I would cut this little piece of paper out, and I would anoint the corners with devil's shoestring to help bind and confuse, or I would make a little packet with the paper and put hot foot powder in it, or jalapeno powder, or something that burns when that makes a burning sensation when he talks. And then I would add it to this bag, freezer bag, Ziploc bag, as long as it has a seal. Add water to it to where it just covers the paper, stick it in the freezer, the spell is over. This spell has worked fantastic for me on many different things, not just a person, but like I said, situation. I think I've used it on, it's going to sound really bad, but having problems paying the bills, I've used it on that to help open the minds of those, the collectors, to give us a little more time to pay the bills. To also work other magics to bring in more money. It kind of freezes the situation so I can put that aside and then work on bringing in money instead of just leaving the house. One of the last things I want to share with you, it's also going to be a quick video, is recently me and my sisters, we came into, a friend of ours was in trouble and needed someone, the other person who was giving her trouble, binding. And I took inspiration off of a pop culture reference, which is the Evil Queen in Snow White. Because if you think about it, the poison apple that she gave Snow White, if you look at it from a magical perspective, it is a type of binding. It really does knock Snow White out to sleep, but it also stops her from doing what the queen didn't want her to do. The queen didn't want her to be alive so she could have the throne, so she, put Snow White under a sleeping spell, which is in and of itself a binding. So I used the original spell. Of course, I found it off YouTube, which is dip the apple in the brew and let the sleeping death seep through. That's the original spell, short and simple and to the point. So how I did 3 different ones. Each of us were going to do one of the lines. The first one I did, which I'll actually show you how I did it. So first one I have is bind the apple with a bow, you will reap what you sow. The next one, bind the apple with a string, your bark will come back to sting. And the third one, pierce the apple with a nail, your harmful actions are to no avail. So, in theory, this spell what we would do with this spell is cut the apple in half, put the person's tag lock in the middle, have the apple put back together. One of us would wrap one with a ribbon, one of us would wrap it with a string, and the other one would pierce it with the nail so the apples don't come apart. We would say the spell, of course, visualize, and put the energy into it, and then get rid of it. Either throw it in the trash, or it's biodegradable, so bury it. And the string we use would be hemp. The ribbon, probably just throw it in the trash. The nails, the same way. So that's the theory of that spell. Something else you can do, another chaos, sorry, I'm having hiccups. A chaos magic standpoint, which has a lot to do with energy work. I have the hiccups. Jesus. There's a lot to do with energy work, especially from what I've read on Hands-on Chaos Magic by Andre Vitamus. It's basically working up and being able to visualize and manipulate the energies around you and to doing what you need, or experimenting and trying out new things. What you could do, and I'm not saying this is less or more powerful than the spell I showed you or any binding that you want to do, is you can visualize the person or the situation, and you can visualize energy bands that are like your color for binding. I would do probably brown, so it grounds everything like twine, that color brown, the tan, and I would bind it up almost like a mummy. So I'd visualize either the person or the situation bound in my head with the twine around it, or have their mouth shut or their ears shut or their eyes shut. I said ears. eyes or their ears, so they can't hear, they can't see, they can't talk, things like that. Now, if you think about it ethically, from a Wiccan standpoint, that can be baneful magic because you are forcing your will into someone else. But for me, it's protection magic. I would only use binding in a protective sense, or in a sense where I need help. Like I said, with the financial situation, I would bind that situation where more money was going out than was coming in, so I could work to bring more money in, to instead of it just going out and don't have anything left. You know, so that is another sort of protection. So you're not stressing yourself out. You have money for food. You have money to pay rent or mortgage, your car payment or whatever. It's not like that situation comes in and I'm still, you know, frivolously buying things. It's that situation comes in, I bind it or freeze it, and then I work towards magically and physically, work overtime at work, do extra things on the side, like for me, doing more photography gigs where I get, you know, family portraits, portraiture work, event work, or doing readings and healings on the weekends or my days off. That kind of brings money flow in, so that kind of gets that energy going. So I wanted to share that with you guys today. I hope you guys had an awesome holiday, blessed solstice, and Merry Christmas, and all the holidays in between. And until next week, many blessings.